Everybody, Keith Engle here for TGI Sports Talk's Jack and Keith's Weekend Playbook right here on the McGrath streaming podcast network of shows. We still got a little music playing, so let me get with that. Jack, I welcome my co-host Jack Hirsch, a Hall of Fame boxing writer and sometimes sports guru. I got to qualify your statement now. How are you this morning, Jack?
Yeah. Maybe just leave out the initial title, say co-host Jack Hirsch. You know, I couldn't believe it, Keith. Before the show, people don't hear what we're talking about. At least they're not supposed to. And we talked only college football today beforehand. Who would have ever thought I would only talk college football and nothing else off the air? But I was psyched with the 3 games yesterday and the game before that, even though we're not going to start off with Miami and Ohio State. Congratulations, Keith. You nailed the upset. The only question is, Keith, did you nail the upset because of your vast football knowledge or because you are Homer wanting Miami to win?
I'll tell you the answer to that in a minute when we get to that game, but I will tell you, I told you exactly how they were going to win, and that's how they won. So pretty much. Anyway, we will get to that game, but the biggest game, the best game of the weekend, that was a great game in my mind. Great football game. The best game we saw all weekend was last night at the Sugar Bowl. The other 2 games during the day were not so great. But last night's Sugar Bowl, the Ole Miss saga just continues. We all know Lane Kiffin left. The coaches were forced to leave with him or they wouldn't have jobs. And then they came back and then they beat Tulane. And I still said, okay, great. But last night they played Georgia, who they'd lost to in the regular season. And it was a back and forth game. I thought the coaching of Kirby Smart and his staff would be the difference maker last night. It was not. Ole Miss hung in there. Trinidad and Chambliss played great. The defense came up big at different times when he needed to, even though they gave up some points. It was a back and forth, exciting game. And it was, you saw stuff you'd never seen. I never saw an ending like that last night where, we had to keep replaying the kickoffs that go out of bounds, and Georgia got about 3 chances to score again at the end. But just a fun game. What are your thoughts, Jack?
You could not have scripted the ending any better. You talk about Kirby Smart, no pun intended, but it wasn't smart coaching at the end. He says it's on him. Maybe it was on him, maybe it wasn't. But when you're late in the game and you're on your own 33-yard line and you have 4th and 2 and you intend to punt the ball and you're trying to draw the other team offside, they drew themselves offside by snapping the ball, and all of a sudden, it was totally unexpected. The Georgia players didn't expect the darn ball to be snapped, and they get stopped. And I hate to say that was the difference in the game, but that probably ultimately was the difference in the game.
I think it was, and you wouldn't expect Kirby Smart to pull a bonehead play like. And to me, that was not the spot to do that, and it kind of changed the momentum of that game at the time. If I can use that.
One thing we constantly see that coaches trying to draw other teams offside. Once in a blue moon, it happens. The other team is foolish enough to go for the bait, but all in all, that doesn't work. It doesn't work, and sometimes we see their own team have an illegal procedure, or someone on the offensive side of the ball, jumping offside. But in any event, what a game and what a drama is going on with Ole Miss. Ole Miss right at this moment, I think they're America's team right at this moment. It's only going to be short-lived. But right at this moment, Ole Miss, I think, is the story in college football. I don't think it's Indiana with their powerhouse team. I don't think the story in college football is Ohio State unexpectedly falling to Miami or Oregon, anything else. I think the story is Ole Miss because Ole Miss has a villain now. They have a villain who's no longer with them. And I think it's a soap opera effect going on. And I think the Ole Miss players, rather than have a good feeling about their former coach, Lane Kiffin, they're rallying to beat them. They have two opponents when they play. Two opponents. I mean, they're going to have Miami coming up, okay, your team, and they're going to have Lane Kiffin. They're going to want to beat them both. And who are they going to have more satisfaction beating?
Well, they can't beat one without beating the other. So, I mean, this whole thing, the key to this whole thing was the fact that, and love Lane Kiffin, hate Lane Kiffin. He's a very polarizing guy because there's no in between with Lane Kiffin. I guess I've reached the in between. I shouldn't say that because I used to love the guy, but he's just gone around the bend. He didn't really cause this issue himself. He wanted to move on, which coaches do all the time. And it's the calendar of the NCAA and the fact that he positioned this to make the university look bad. He threatened his coaches originally that if they didn't come with him now, they wouldn't have jobs. And then he let them come back to Ole Miss to coach out. This becomes even more problematic now because the portal opens today. The transfer portal opens today, and all those coaches that are going to LSU are going to be around players like Trinidad Chambliss, who we're going to talk more about, who could enter the portal, could go to the NFL. We don't know about Trinidad Chambliss at all, and a lot of other players. And they're going to be around them more, and they've got to make decisions here in the next, 10
Let me ask you a hypothetical question, Keith, which I haven't heard anyone bring up. Let's say Ole Miss allowed Lane Kiffin to stay and coach throughout the playoffs. And there was no dispute. They'd say, good luck to your coach, Kiffin. You'll be with us till the end of the year through the playoffs. He would have said no problem. And he and Ole Miss wouldn't be butting heads. The transfer portal would still be coming up. But do you think Lane Kiffin would be concentrating on Ole Miss? And let's say they won these two games the way they have in the playoffs. Or would he be running back and forth now? What would have been unfolding?
It would not work. It couldn't work. It can work with guys who stayed some of the smaller schools, right? First of all, they weren't going to a major competitor in their own backyard in the same conference, right? We're talking about John Sumrall. We're talking about the coach from Northern Texas who's going to Oklahoma State. These were different situations, right? They still had to do two jobs, but they weren't. John Sumrall wasn't really playing for the national championship at Tulane. This was a whole different story, and Lane Kiffin could not have done this. The first couple of games, yes. You know what? This could have worked. It could have worked fine. They could have got past that early recruiting period. That wouldn't have been a problem. Today, if they play two more games, and hopefully they only play one for my sake, but even at one, there's 10 days of the portal being open before that game gets played, where we're going to have all these questions about guys who are doing two jobs. And those guys who are in Ole Miss are still doing two jobs, by the way. They're doing things for LSU. Guys like Charlie Weiss Jr., they're still talking to recruits because they have to.
Charlie Weiss Jr., at least, flew back with the Ole Miss team reportedly. It was planning to. Lane Kiffin tweeted out something about his coaches who are at Ole Miss right now, temporarily on loan, back at, LSU, working hard into the night. How good a job could these coaches do for Ole Miss? He might work them so hard, these coaches are going to be half asleep when they're at Ole Miss. These coaches, instead of giving their all to Ole Miss, and I'm not saying that they're not, the assistant coaches, but you better believe they're human. You're working 18, 20-hour days. You can't wait for it to be over. And a certain part of them, is thinking, let these college playoffs be over. If we win, great. But if we lose, that's also good because now, I can go back to LSU and concentrate, whatever. But I'm going to tell you this. It hasn't come out yet. you better believe Lane Kiffin's probably losing one or two of those coaches at LSU. They're going to want to come back to Ole Miss. There's probably some discussion with Ole Miss. If you guys are welcome to stay here. We'll give you a contract, these assistant coaches. So I'm not saying Ole Miss is plotting to undo Lane Kiffin, but I think there's going to be open arms, especially with this run, because Ole Miss sees how hard some of these assistant coaches, if not all of them, are working on behalf of Ole Miss. And it's going to be interesting how it plays out. Imagine Ole Miss wins the national championship. What goes on then?
So if I'm Charlie Weiss Jr., I'm just going to use him as an example because he's kind of the face of the assistant coaches that we know. Yeah. He's the highest profile guy.
Offensive coordinator, yeah.
That's right. And theoretically, the most important guy who came back, although they're all important. If they win the national championship or just get to the championship game and Trinidad Chambliss is staying at Ole Miss, if I'm Charlie Weiss, where do I have a better chance of succeeding and making myself up for a head coach job of my own potentially? I'm better off staying at Ole Miss maybe. So, yes, I agree, Jack. There's got to be machinations in place happening right now where they're saying, are you sure you want to go? Because this is...
But Lane Kiffin hasn't made a decision yet. If he demands all those coaches leave Ole Miss, go to LSU, as much a villain as he might seem now, it's off the charts as far as the type of villain he becomes.
Yeah.
It gets ugly. Basically, he would be saying to Ole Miss, I don't give a darn about any of the kids. I don't give a darn about any of the players. And it's the worst type of betrayal. You would think the time he had at Ole Miss, he'd be fond of the players. He'd want them to succeed and do everything he could for Ole Miss. In that circumstance, but he's probably so mad at the Ole Miss administration, he'd want to get back at them even through the kids. And the reason he loaned the coaches out to begin with, I don't think Lane Kiffin counted on them getting this far. He knew it was possible, but he figured it's unlikely. We're probably going to lose. I'll look good in what I did, case closed. But now that it's continuing, and one more thing, Keith, if Ole Miss does win the national championship, it's crossed Lane Kiffin's mind. How good is that going to make Lane Kiffin good? Look, people are going to say, we didn't need Lane Kiffin after all. How good a coach is he? Let him go to LSU. We won without him.
Well, he already, and I'm sorry, J-Train, to put it this way, but one coach already left his employment. The last coach, Brian Kelly, left Notre Dame because he said, I have a better chance of winning a national championship at LSU. And Lane Kiffin basically said the same thing. I'm sorry, Ole Miss is in the semifinals. LSU is nowhere to be found. And who's got a better chance of winning a national championship? Where do you have a better chance to win? I'm saying Lane Kiffin put this program together. So, he's still going to look good. But this looks really like a stupid move. I mean, you should have stayed where you were. We could have made this all a lot easier. And if he now, because again, you said this, I don't know if you said it in your last soliloquy, if I missed it, I apologize. But before the show, we were talking, and I'm sure when this was all going on and the school and Kiffin were negotiating with coaches to stay, they probably didn't expect to get to the semifinal and get to where we got to the transfer portal opening up while they were still playing. And kids are moving already, by the way. 2 kids from Miami have entered the portal. They're not kids that are playing. So it's not anybody of consequence. But we're now reached the point in college football where teams in contention for the national championship have kids entering the portal before their season is over, maybe 2 weeks before it's over. And this is not what the NCAA ought to be looking for. So, by the way, a couple of things before we move on from this topic. I know we're not moving on necessarily, but I don't want to miss some. Yes, Brian, I am ready for my Ole Miss. We'll talk more about Miami in a second. J-Train had a little problem with you calling the Ole Miss Rebels America's team. Did you say Rebels, or is that did he?
Well, no. I said to people now, something about Ole Miss. They become the biggest sports story right now. Biggest sports story because with Lane Kiffin, especially if Lane Kiffin demands the coaches leave Ole Miss. Can you imagine if those assistant coaches left Ole Miss right now? Basically in the middle of the playoffs with 2 games to go to the national championship.
Can't do it.
Can you imagine? Can you imagine the support Ole Miss is going to get. They're going to be like the ultimate underdogs in the sense like the deck is going to be completely stacked against them. And keep this in mind: those assistant coaches, if they're forced to go back to LSU, they're going to look bad. They're going to look really, really bad. And you wonder whether Lane Kiffin is going to say this for public consumption. Well, if any of those coaches want to stay at Ole Miss from now on, they don't want to be on my LSU staff, they're welcome to leave. He might put them in a spot. If you stay at Ole Miss, you're going to be fired. And those assistant coaches might not be guaranteed a future employment at Ole Miss. They might get caught in the middle, a couple of them.
And I will disagree with one thing, Brian, here. Yes, the story maybe it will be dead in its tracks if the coaches stay. If the coaches leave and Miami beats Ole Miss, the story's not dead by any stretch of the imagination. Not a little bit, because we're going to be talking about this until we play games again next year. Back to Chambliss. He is. I did petition. James had a comment up here about Chambliss. He did petition the NCAA petition. Sorry. The NCAA for another year of eligibility. His name hasn't even come up on draft boards, by the way. We talked about it a little bit before the show. Second round is to me is the ceiling for Trinidad Chambliss, regardless how he played last night, how he plays against Miami. But the kid's come out of nowhere. He's a great story. He was playing in Division II football last year, barely. And
but the point is this: a few NFL teams absolutely need a quarterback. We're picking high in the draft. That's the Raiders. We're going to take Mendoza, assuming they lose to the Chiefs. The Raiders are going to go number one. I think everyone knows Fernando Mendoza is going to the Las Vegas Raiders. That leaves the Jets and the Arizona Cardinals. And Dante Moore is going to go next. Okay, either the Jets or Arizona is going to take him, but one of them might not want to use a very high draft pick on a quarterback unless they're sold on him being their quarterback of the future. So that leaves a Trinidad Chambliss who could go to someone late in the first round. The team could move up a little. But they have to address quarterback situations. A few teams like the Jets. Where do you address it? That's the question. Trinidad Chambliss now comes into play. If they like the way he looks, he can be drafted. The Jets could move up to late in the first round. Early, they go early, early in the second round when they draft again. There are other possibilities. You look at Simpson in Alabama. He was thought to be a first-round pick. His stock after yesterday. I know he got hurt during the game and so on, but he didn't look good. He didn't look like a first-round selection.
I never thought he was. And again, I think it's a big drop. No matter where Chambliss moves up to, it's still a big drop from the first two guys to the next guy, in my mind. At least talent-wise, where teams will pick him, I don't know, because teams reach all the time. But
let's see how he continues to play through the playoffs.
Yeah.
If he really looks outstanding for one more game, and possibly if they go on a run and win that game, 2 more games, it's a difference maker. It's going to be a difference maker as far as draft status goes.
And to James's comment here about LSU recruiting Chambliss, Lacey, and others, if that's going, this is the biggest problem we have here. This is what I was just talking about. If this is going on, and I'm not naive to think that they're not, Charlie Weiss Jr. shouldn't be in vicinity of Chambliss day in and day out if he's recruiting him to come play at LSU with him and Lane Kiffin. It shouldn't happen.
So now I say, so Lane Kiffin, who wanted to portray himself as a nice guy by allowing his assistant to return to Ole Miss, had an ulterior motive to get some of the players into the transfer portal, like Chambliss.
This is exactly why Ole Miss didn't want Lane Kiffin around for another month.
But the assistant coaches are there for Lane Kiffin, then doing his dirty work. That's what they're saying.
They don't want a walking billboard for LSU on their.
But wait a second. Let me throw you a curveball, Keith. I'm the athletic director of Ole Miss. Let's say they lose their next game. I sit down with Charlie Weiss Jr. saying, I want to make you the head coach.
Can't. He already hired one. Well, he could fire his coach.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
He's not going to fire Pete Golding after winning.
No. I'm getting a little off track here. Forget about that. I'm thinking of all the hypotheticals.
You were watching too many.
The Lane Kiffin thing has me crazy. I'm trying to counter him even.
Yeah, and CA talks about. I'm not going to get. This is too big a story to get into right now. Overall, you're right, CA. The corruption and all of it, whether it's the Olympics or whatever. That's a story for another day, though. But
no, there's no sports corruption.
Enough corruption. There's enough corruption in college football.
Sports is pure.
All that other stuff. Let me just see what else is here. LSU is giving $25 million NIL money annually. I understand all that, James. I'm not saying you're absolutely right. LSU wants Trinidad Chambliss to come there. I don't doubt that for a second. My problem is the fact that we're even able to have this conversation is what's wrong with college football right now. It's awful. It's ridiculous. And again, I don't think the story goes away. Real quick, we'll move on here after this. They do have a good chance, without a doubt. I've listened. The best team. And while I'm going through these real quick, $4 million offer to, okay, you don't make more money in the NFL, but even as a second round pick, probably. Dante's projected over Mendoza. I've said a couple of times, Brian, I like Moore's long-term projection in the NFL more than I like Mendoza.
Yeah, Mendoza's a little more of a one-trick pony. He's a pure pocket passer, and he does that very well. Dante Moore kind of, his style's a little more suited to the modern NFL, rolling out, a little more flexible. Yeah, I like it's intriguing, but Mendoza's going to be more NFL ready next season. I don't think either one of them is ready to play right away. Wherever Mendoza goes, which is likely to be at Las Vegas, he'll probably have to play right away. And he might fit. He's got a really quirky, I talked about this before we went on the air with Jack. He's got a quirky personality. You see it in interviews. Nice kid, great kid. I wonder how he's going to lead NFL veterans at some point, but he'll grow and he'll change and mature. And Jack did point out to me that there's no better coach, assuming he keeps his job, in the NFL for a weird, quirky personality than Pete Carroll, who's got a weird, quirky. They'll relate to one another well. They'll get along. And there's leadership there with Max Crosby, even though Crosby wants out, supposedly, is mad because they're shutting him down and he wants to play. And having Brock Bowers, a future Hall of Fame tight end. He'll be fine there. And to
J Train's point about who played better, yes, they both played. Listen, Alabama didn't even show up to play. That defense was horrendous, and Dante Moore had to play against one of the best defenses in the country. We're going to switch. We're going to go right now to We're going to start talking Indiana and Texas Tech. Texas Tech's defense should be really pissed off today because they played pretty well. Dan Lanning, again, bad coaching decisions. He left 9 or 12 points on the board yesterday. He should have taken the way his defense was playing. But Texas Tech's defense played well. They kept having to play on short fields. They had to be on the field too much. Texas Tech's offense was non-existent. So Mendoza.
And their lineman Bailey was outstanding for Texas Tech.
Great
Absolutely outstanding. And I don't know where he's projected to go in the draft. I'm assuming he's coming out. And, Morton was terrible, the quarterback for Texas Tech. He was just dreadful. I know they showed the stat line. It was his first interception, the pick he threw in ages. But
he was missing wide open guys.
Oh, he was awful. He was dreadful. They finally started to move the ball in the second half, and then he threw an awful interception by the goal line, and it just had to be discouraging, like you said, for the Texas Tech defense. They were outstanding to the point. What did you think of Lanning at the end of the game, not taking a knee? I know they didn't throw the ball. They handed it off for the TD. They handed it off a couple of times. Originally, they got stopped. Then they got the TD. Some people might think they were rubbing it in. I like what Lanning did. You want to know why? Because psychologically, you want the number to be higher for Oregon. We won 23-0 as opposed to 16-0. I think it puts you in a little better frame of mind. And all they did was hand the ball off. I'm glad a big fuss wasn't made about it.
It shouldn't be. I mean, I don't have a problem with these things because until the other team stops playing, why do I have to stop playing? It's not my job to stop my team. It's your job. And if they don't come on the field, then I won't try to score. But it gets. Look, he's still working his team too. He's working on some things, getting ready for the next game. So I don't have a problem with that. I'm sure they're. Oh, here we go. Sorry, here's one. Oregon was classless at the end of a meaningless game. I don't agree at all. James, sorry, I'm never going to agree with this stuff. Why would I take a knee? Why? You can. I'm not saying you should or shouldn't. I don't have a problem if he does. That's my point. I don't care how you handle that. You handle it the way it's best for your team. And the only time I'll say anything different is if you're doing it against one of the military academies. You don't do that. But anybody else, fair game. They're out there still playing. They're trying to stop me. The first team defense was in. Why can't my first team offense be in? I get into these conversations all the time, by the way. So, Carol's no way as weird as McDaniels. I don't just.
You got your leg kicked. You got me here on the other end. Don't forget.
Oh, sorry.
You have me here.
Comment on that. Go ahead. Comment.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No. That's good. Yeah.
You're good. I didn't mean to get you. So again.
But
I get riled up.
Oregon. You wonder was it Oregon's defense was any better than Texas Tech's defense in reality? I mean, Texas Tech's defense was awful. Just flat out awful. The offense, I mean.
The offense was just non-existent. By the way,
yeah, terrible.
The quarterback played in some big games for Texas Tech this year and played pretty well.
That's what I couldn't understand yesterday, just what went wrong. I mean, Oregon had a lot to do with it, obviously.
Oregon's defense played really well, and Lanning I like Dan Lanning a lot. In fact, I ranked him like third in my coaches of these 8 that are left.
Yeah.
But yesterday, him continuing to go for first down when his defense, and not kick field goals, when his defense was just dominating Texas Tech, or Texas Tech was stinking it up, every way you want to look at it, was mind-boggling to me because you mentioned Texas Tech took the ball down. It was only 13-0. They got the ball inside the 5-yard line, couldn't put it in the end zone, but you would have had a ball game in the third quarter because he kept leaving points on the field. I don't get it. I just don't understand sometimes. But these weren't that in the Indiana game. Indiana looks like the best team out there right now if you base it just off of what you saw yesterday. But you got to factor in Alabama just didn't look like they wanted to even play yesterday.
Indiana now is the clear favorite to win the national championship. Anything could happen, of course, but with Ohio State exiting, everyone was kind of planning out, the Indiana-Ohio State, final national championship game. I think it was the manner in which Indiana won yesterday. What's interesting on College Game Day? They were going over their predictions in the Alabama-Indiana game, and Nick Saban, he picked Alabama. And you wonder did he really think Alabama was going to win? Because how can you pick Indiana to win? And then if Alabama wins, Nick Saban has to answer, he's a traitor, he's this, he's that. People are going to want to read into it different ways. So the conservative thing to do would be to say for Nick Saban, no, I pick Alabama. And if they lose, they lose. Who cares that he picked Alabama? He's an Alabama guy. I mean, we kind of see that all the time. I love commentators who are willing to go the other way. You even see something like that if you see Derek Jeter on the Fox network. If the Yankees hypothetically are playing the Dodgers in the World Series and they ask him for a prediction who's going to win, how can he say the Dodgers are going to win? Because if the Yankees then win, people are going to get on his case. So the easy thing is always stick with the team that you coached and played for, and it compromises you.
To Brian's comment about Texas Tech's offense not being known for their offense, they were like 6th or 7th, and they averaged 39 points a game. This team, they were known for their defense. They spent their money on defense, but this team scored 40 points a game this year. They couldn't get off. They couldn't do anything right yesterday, and the defense. And part of that's Oregon. Again, I say this a lot. We're blaming the Texas Tech offense and whatnot. I got to give some credit to the Oregon defense as well. So
the Oregon defense, they just got better as the game went along.
Yeah.
I mean, in the second half when Texas Tech would, kind of move the ball, it looked like they were finally going to have a little bit of a breakthrough. Oregon always found a way to shut them down.
I had Frank sent me a message after he saw my comments from Monday's show about Miami shocking the world Friday night.
Yeah. I mean, Frank did too much of an about face. I mean, Frank went from Keith has no idea what he's talking about to Keith is the ultimate expert. Come on.
I think Frank.
I mean, let's get something in between. Well, Frank is happy Ohio State, got knocked off. But that's the team. He hates them and he hates the Philadelphia Eagles. If I pick against the Eagles and they lose, is Frank going to compliment me the way he complimented you? Is he going to call me an NFL expert? No, he's not. I'm going to get no compliment.
Frank is growing as a person and sees me as the college football expert that I am. So thank you, Frank.
Well, you didn't have much competition in your season record going against me. I mean, come on. You were the equivalent. Because you know what you were the equivalent in beating me? You were the equivalent of whoever wins the division between the Carolina Panthers and Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That's your record. Mine was just more pathetic.
Hey, Frank, by the way, while you're still here, Jack actually got mad at me for forgetting he was in the room because I was talking too much a minute ago. I mean, Jack would know, I guess, but you were right. You were right.
No, that wasn't it. We'll talk later.
Oh, I don't know. Now
you misunderstood.
Oh, okay. All right, whatever. I did something wrong. Now I don't even know. I feel like I'm talking.
That wasn't it, Keith. I'm glad to sit in. When it comes to college football, I'd rather you do the talking than me.
No, now I feel like I'm talking to my wife. Now I do.
Well, you weren't a Miami Hurricane fan. Listen, let me ask you this, your opinion of this, okay?
Yes.
They have former players on the sideline. You see Michael Irvin going crazy, celebrating with the team. How does that strike you? Is that a little over the top? Like, why is he there with the team going crazy? Now, let me just give you my view before you can trust. I have mixed feelings. If I'm a kid on the team, Michael Irvin's a Miami Hurricane legend. In a way, that's good. A famous wide receiver, TV personality, so on, celebrating. That kind of builds me up a little bit. Wow, I got Michael Irvin here hugging me. So in a sense, it's good. But also in another sense, come on, guys, be off a little to the side. How does that strike you, all of that?
It isn't, and I don't know how much you've noticed it through the course of the year. This isn't just yesterday. This is every single game with Michael. Not all of them. Ray Lewis isn't there all the time. But Michael Irvin is on that sideline.
You love Miami Hurricanes.
I like the enthusiasm. Sometimes it feels a little over the top with Michael, like everything is with Michael, I guess. And I don't like that sometimes he's interacting with the players during the game and stuff like that. Sometimes I feel he's too close when things still being played out. So, but I like the enthusiasm overall. I like that Michael comes back and gives back to his alma mater and supports them the way that he does. So overall, I think it's fine.
Yeah, I mean, it's okay during the game. You try to pump up another wide receiver. Like he drops the ball, encourage him. But as long as you don't get in the way of the wide receiver coach, the coaching staff, if you start becoming a little bit of pain in the butt, because, interfering with the coaching staff unintentionally, of course, not meaning to, then it kind of becomes a little annoying. Like you see, for example, the Cleveland Browns, Deion Sanders comes to watch his son Shador play, but he's in the box upstairs. Good. I would have a problem if he was downstairs and he ever said anything to Shador. That's why I would start having a problem, but that's not the case in Cleveland. Fortunately, he's up in the box more like a dad than he is a coach.
Yeah, that's a different situation. If Deion were on the field,
another thing. How many years did Jimmy Johnson actually coach at Miami? It was only like a few years, right?
4 years, maybe.
Right, and they won a national championship. I get it. His last year, they lost to Notre Dame in that legendary game. But the way he's invited onto the stage over there, I mean, I don't know how I feel about it. In a sense, he's alumni, but it's Jimmy Johnson, and he had 5 years at Dallas. He hasn't been at these places a massively long amount of time for everyone to go crazy. He got to be in the Ring of Honor there. He got to be honored by the Miami Hurricanes. I don't know how I feel about it.
Dennis Erickson won more national championship at Miami than Jimmy Johnson did. Because Jimmy left. I mean, Jimmy probably would have won more. One thing that does annoy me is that people come and they think that that's when Miami was born, when Jimmy Johnson took over. No, the guy who gets forgetting all of this is Howard Schnellenberger, who turned that program from a mediocrity, irrelevant football program. Sorry to Chuck Foreman and Jim Kelly and all these great players who played there. They were in an irrelevant football program until Howard Schnellenberger got there and they won a national championship against Nebraska. And Howard Schnellenberger, God rest his soul, always gets left out of these conversations, always. So anyway.
No, but Mike Cristobal, the Miami coach, he was recruited by Jimmy Johnson. So there was a relationship. And yeah, it was okay that Jimmy Johnson was on the stage.
I'm okay he's there. It's not like he took the spotlight. He was standing in the back.
And these alumni like Michael Irvin, Jimmy Johnson, they can always be utilized in the recruiting process to a degree, And can you imagine Miami's trying to recruit a certain wide receiver, and the coach shows up with Michael Irvin, and he gives the sales pitch. It don't do nothing, I think, but help.
And I don't think Jack's trying to poo-poo what's going on here. I want to speak for Jack, but I don't think that's what's going on. They are relevant. They have been irrelevant for a long time. We talk about, college football huddle, we talk about blue bloods. I talk about blue bloods. And Miami fans think they're a blue blood. This team was only relevant from like 1982 to 2002. They were a great program. They were the best program in college football, but not for decades and decades like Alabama and Oklahoma and Michigan and Ohio State. These are.
When is the West Coast? I'm talking about USC, UCLA, going to become relevant again.
They should never. If they wanted to be relevant again, they should not have left the Big Ten or gone to the Big Ten. They shouldn't have blown up the Pac-12. They should have built their own conference up to where it was, because USC is one of those blue bloods that I was talking about.
Yeah.
I didn't mention them. I should have. I always get an argument about West Coast football. But USC's on a level with those other teams that I just mentioned about those programs. So they should never have blown up the Pac-12. They're not going to be relevant playing in the Big Ten. They're going to get lost amongst the users.
No, I know you want to talk about the Miami game a couple of nights ago, and I think the pick six put Ohio State in that hole. You're down 14-0 at the half. You could sense Ohio State was straining, but I'm going to tell you, when Ohio State cut it to 17-14, I thought, this is it. Ohio State finds a way to win the game. Yep. This is up their alley. They're positioned now to win this game, and credit to Miami for not letting them do it.
It felt, as a fan watching the game, it's weird, because when it got to be 14-13, I had this deflated feeling, and it almost felt like we were behind. It felt like we were behind in the game at the time. And then Ohio State got the ball back again quickly in the fourth quarter. We're at midfield, and a huge sack again caused them to punt the ball away, and then Miami just had that last drive.
Well, what got me too is the way Miami's offensive line was able to, push Ohio State back at the end of the game, and then Miami's running game basically, I don't want to say ran the clock out, but essentially that's what they did.
Told you I had to get to the quarterback and run the football. It's not rocket science.
They ran the football, Miami, very effectively at the end, and Ohio State knew they had to stop the run.
They wore them down.
It was that simple.
They wore them down because early on, they didn't run the ball that well, at least mid part of the game. They were just running into a brick wall, but late in the game, they wear teams down. They're really good.
And the quarterback that I'm always intrigued with, Carson Beck, I don't know what to make out of his performance. He managed the game. He did what he had to do. He didn't show anything extra. He managed the game. Again, another key to winning, I said before, was he cannot make a big mistake. He didn't. Sayin made mistakes. The big mistake with the pick six, which was also forced by that pass rush, by the way, because they're looking to get away from it and get the ball out of there quickly. I guarantee you Miami had seen that play on film 1,000 times, because they knew exactly what was coming, because he'd seen that play, that kid. That was just that play was made days before in the film room. Guaranteed. I'm going to tell you this. You look at the four quarterbacks that are left, and the national championship is not going to be won by just playing mistake-free football. One of the quarterbacks, all of the quarterbacks are going to have to go out and win the game at some point. I just don't see any of these games, left. The two semifinal games, a team just winning, playing it close to the vest. Quarterbacks are going to have to make plays in these games. Dante Moore is going to have to make plays, and Dante Moore is a playmaker for Oregon. His style of play, he's a playmaker. He has a really quick release. I love his release, how he gets rid of the ball quickly in his anticipation. And even though he's 6'3", he somehow looks smaller, but he's mobile. He runs out. Mendoza obviously is built to make plays, in all the games he's at. And Chambliss, let's see, is he what? No, I don't want to say momentum. I'm trying to avoid that word.
Miami.
What he showed yesterday, can he carry it over? Is he that good? Is he the type of quarterback he showed yesterday? Was yesterday
Jack,
a little more of an aberration?
Jack, you might as well just say the word, because you've described momentum all the time, but you just don't want to say the word. Everything you say.
Momentum has an effect, but it's an overrated word. I hate the commentators. They use the word all the time. And when a team should have points on the board, they talk about momentum, and I'm figuring, screw momentum. I want the points. You could have the momentum. Give me the points.
Right. And Brian, yes, the defense, as I said before the game, and I know you were here Monday when we were talking about it, that pressuring the quarterback was a key. And the 5 sacks don't even tell the story, because they were all over saying a lot of that game without the 5 sacks. They did cause the pick 6, and that's why they won the game. One thing that gets overlooked, I will tell you another huge part of Miami's game that gets overlooked. I don't see wide receivers blocking like their wide receivers block anywhere else in the country. Maybe I'm not looking close enough, but Malachi Toney made 2 of the best blocks you'll ever see as a wide receiver to spring big plays in the last drive. And that means something. They're playing, even when they're not involved in the play. They're still getting their job done. And I like to see that.
And could I tell you, no one's going to talk about it hardly this morning, but Georgia. As disappointing a loss as it was, and as disappointing as their defense was at the end of the game, if you ask me now, one of the favorites, if not the favorite, to win the national championship next year, if I had to just project a year in advance, Georgia might be the favorite going into next season.
Possibly. Listen, they've continued to contend, even when they're not nearly the team they were when they were winning back-to-back championships.
Well, they have most of their guys coming back, and they're not really going to be affected with the transfer portal much, from what I understand.
Well, they don't get involved in the transfer portal that much or lose guys like other teams seem to. I'm not sure what the quarterback situation is there. I think he might have a year left.
I gotta laugh, Keith. We criticized Lane Kiffin savagely, and nearly savagely in a way. And then we look at a guy like Dabo Swinney at Clemson, who's such a gentleman. He refuses to dip into the transfer portal. And you call him a dummy. You didn't use that word, but that's
he is a dummy. He is a dummy.
Who's got it right?
Well, again, Kirby Smart doesn't use it to the same extent Lane Kiffin does, for instance, right? But Dabo doesn't use it at all. At least Kirby does it. He brings in wide receivers. He brings in key players. It isn't like he doesn't do it. So, people think Kirby doesn't use it.
Dabo's got to be given an ultimatum. Dabo, you got to start using it. You start off at least gently the first year, and then you got to keep up with the times after a while. Even though he doesn't like it, the whole concept. The times are the times. I
think Dabo, is staving off the execution by getting rid of 2 of his top assistants. And by the way, James brings up a good point now. Indiana now is the only team. 8. Now we're at 8. Last year I said small sample size. None of the bye teams won last year. This year, 3 of the 4 lost again. I think these byes and being off for 27, 28 days is too much time off for these.
You don't read anything into that. Indiana moved on because they're the best team.
But
One had nothing to do with the other.
You haven't seen these teams come out and play flat like Texas Tech? You don't think that layoff had anything to do with how badly they played on offense yesterday?
It's preparation. I mean, Texas Tech, defensively, they were great. What does any layoff have to do with that?
Because
by the end of the game, listen, in the second half, they had already gotten it together, it appeared, offensively, and then they couldn't score.
Jack, players are used to a routine. They're used to practicing for 6 days and playing a game, practicing for 6 games and playing a game. Maybe having a bye, you practice for 13 days and play a game, not 28.
So what? Yeah.
I always thought that even in the old bowl system, I thought it was too long, from the time they played maybe December.
Well, what are we going to say, Keith? What are we going to say about the Super Bowl? The losing team's going to say, we had 2 weeks off. It threw us off our routine.
There's teams that have said it. I don't think that 2 weeks is not a month. That's a big difference, right? I mean, we can agree that's a lot.
Yeah, I see your point. It definitely could have an effect, and I'm sure it has. But the old rule is it's the same for both teams, isn't it?
It is. No, I don't well, not in this case, no, because a team
not exactly in this case.
Played last week.
And in the big picture for the teams hoping to win the national championship or the extra time off. That's what I meant.
Yeah, without a doubt.
And even Indiana, you could point out they didn't score in the first quarter. So it took them a little bit, a little time to warm up exactly.
Exactly. Paul Spada, who's Spada, sorry. Big Oregon fan. Congratulations to your team.
Lanning's name been associated to the NFL at all? Has there been any talk
not with any great vitriol. I haven't seen anything about Lanning. He will. He feels like a guy who could coach in the NFL, but not much.
If they win the national championship, hypothetically, a guy like Lanning would play well in New York, you would think. Who is going to really? Aaron Glenn should be back as a Jet coach, but if they have another season like that and the Giants don't settle their head coaching situation in New York, it would be an appealing place. A guy like Dan Lanning would play well in New York, I think. He has that personality.
Is Aaron Glenn safe if they put up another game like they put up last week?
No, Aaron Glenn, I believe he's safe as long as there's not an obvious replacement.
Yeah.
Okay, if there was a Mike Grable waiting the same way at New England, Gerard Mayo, let me ask you, if Mike Grable wasn't there, would Gerard Mayo still have gotten a second year? I think he would have with New England.
100%.
There you go, but there's the answer. No one can argue about a guy having only 1 year if you have like an obvious coaching candidate to take over from, but there's no one that's obviously that would go over that. Well, they talk Marcus Freeman's not going to the NFL. He made a clear thing in Notre Dame. He's been smart, because I'm not so sure how he would play out in the NFL. But hypothetically, if the Jets replace Aaron Glenn with Marcus Freeman, it wouldn't go over badly in the sense they think Marcus Freeman, fresh new face, success at Notre Dame, young guy, players coach, to give him a shot, at it. But Aaron Glenn gets the set. He's going to get another. Yeah, I think he should actually, believe it or not. I think he's had an awful first year.
I think he should.
But I'm willing to give him a second year. The one hot coaching candidate who I would normally want the Jets or any other team to get normally would have been Brian Flores. But Brian Flores shot himself in the foot by his actions, a couple of years ago, when he lost the Dolphin job, like suing people left and right, accusing them of being racist, this and that. That went over so poorly. And Brian Flores was a good head coach in Miami. But you know what bothers me about some of these head coaches, Keith, and this could be all of them. Any head coach who likes to keep firing his assistants, why should I have sympathy for him? Why should I be concerned? Let's keep giving him a chance. For example, even with Aaron Glenn, he brings in Steve Wilkes as his defensive coordinator. Steve Wilkes has a poor year. He fires Steve Wilkes in season. can I use the same logic? Steve Wilkes needs more time. Why do we think Aaron Glenn needs more time when his own guy who he hired as defensive coordinator, he's not giving more time to? I mean, just a thought.
No, I listen, I think either way, I mean, I would give the guy another year. That's just me. If they put up a stinker where it looks like they don't even care about being out there like they did last week, that might be a problem.
That's the worst thing that could happen when you're losing and you're not playing hard at the end and the games are non-competitive. Yeah. That means things have gotten worse. And I don't want to hear that they're building something. What the heck are the Jets building? I'm a big Jet fan, but they've become boring to me. They've become irrelevant. People can insult my Jets, and I don't defend them. What can I defend? I could say, yeah, the special teams have been good this year. Oh, good gosh. I got it. The special teams are the highlight of the year. I mean, it's terrible. I mean, but we got the draft to look forward to. 2 number ones this year, 3 number ones next year. But you need the right picks. You need to know how to build. And it's and I don't want to hear, injuries. Every team has injuries. It gets to the point where enough's enough. I understand you have a case like the Tennessee Titans with Cam Ward, no weapons, no this, no that. He might be, Cam Ward might be a very good quarterback. The jury's still out.
They did pick 2.
Yeah, but I still wouldn't hire Brian Flores, Rick.
No.
Not with all the baggage he's bringing.
Yeah, that's the problem.
And he's a wonderful coach, wonderful defensive coordinator. I don't need the headache. If I have to fire Brian Flores at some point, him suing me, accusing me of being a racist, I don't want to know from all that.
Makes it very hard. But at the end of the day, he got fired because the owner chose Tua over Flores, and Flores wouldn't throw games. He didn't want to tank games. Not throw games. He didn't want to tank games. That's another reason he got fired. And Flores turned it into something that it really wasn't. So anyway, so in the NFL though, there's He's a
good coach, Brian Flores.
He's a good coach.
With that said, I say I wouldn't hire him, but you want to know something? I might be able to be talked into it conceivably. That's how high I regard, his abilities. And he's done a wonderful job as defensive coordinator at Minnesota.
Done a great job. And I think he will get a job eventually. I just think it's going to take a little more time. Speaking of bad smells in the NFL, we have one in Foxborough, and it's going to be a distraction that this team doesn't need. This week we had 2 players, the big news was Stefon Diggs being charged with domestic violence, strangulation. Just an ugly story. His chef, we don't know that he was involved.
What I don't get, Keith.
Details. Hold on. Barmore gets the same kind of similar charges against domestic abuse charge. These players have got to smart up. And listen, I'm all for due process, and I'm fine. I'm not going to cut these guys now. I just had a big but going back and forth a couple of weeks ago about the Metcalf thing, that I don't want these guys and these bad character guys in my locker room. And I said, Stefon Diggs came up before this ever happened. And I said, if something happens, I'll cut him on the spot. They should cut him on the spot.
Well, due process, Keith, he might be innocent in this case more so than not.
He could be.
Let's hold off, okay? Let's hold off. Let's not convict him. I'm
not convicting him. I'm only talking about the distraction now that is in the locker room with 2 players that have this cloud.
But if he's innocent, anyone could accuse anyone, and the media is going to go with it. We don't know the situation here. It's got to play out. The NFL will suspend them if they find it's due cause. What I don't get, this is what I find disturbing with the New England Patriot organization. Years ago, when Robert Kraft was the owner, the Patriots drafted a player called Christian Peter. Remember?
I do.
He had some problems. After they drafted him, Robert Kraft found out, and Robert Kraft insisted they cut him. So we lose our draft pick. We're not going to have a guy with that lack of character and those off-the-field issues. They didn't know about it, and then they found out. But I have a problem with New England saying they support Stefon Diggs. I don't like that word support. That means they have his back. they're in his corner. I don't want to hear that. Eliminate the word support and let them use the word there's due process, going on. But now we're moving forward there are better words to use than the word supporting him.
Yeah.
Supporting him means you're on his side in this, and you don't know whether he's innocent or not. Unless they really believe he's innocent 100%, unless they've done their own investigation and they see behind the scenes, Stefan's innocent. We see this. We support him. Then I get it.
These whispers were out here for a couple of weeks. I'd heard them and I didn't say anything about them because I don't talk about those things until I see it from a real source.
What's with the Diggs brothers? Trevon Diggs was cut by the Cowboys, picked up by the Packers because the game in Washington, he has family there, and he didn't want to fly back to Dallas because then he would have had to fly back to Washington again, and they didn't give him permission. Said he had to fly back with the team. I understand Brian Schottenheimer's policy because then it opens up a can of worms. You're going to have other players not wanting to fly back to precedent. Let's say they're playing a game against the Jets or Giants. They might want to hang out in New York players for a couple of days and decide they're not flying back with the team.
Well, it made it easy because Trevon Diggs has been terrible as well. So that makes the decision.
Well, he's hurt. Well, part of it, Trevon Diggs, during his rehab, they wanted him in Dallas to rehab with the team trainers. Instead, he'd stay in South Florida rehabbing on his own. So.
That is, by the way, Brian, that is exactly why the team said they cut him. They cut him because he did not follow team rules. That's why they cut him. They didn't cut him. Now, again, they cut him because he sucks. But they use the flight and everything as a reason. James got a good question because I talk about character a lot, and when I turn a blind eye to LT at the top of his career, if I'm gonna be consistent, I have to say I give him a chance. But if he continues to, when I talk about I have zero policy, I'm talking about these domestic violence issues. And LT had some of these issues through his career too. Those were later in his career though, as I remember them. The drug issues were early. The drug issues, I'm going to give guys a chance, okay? But if they continue to just, fall back into bad habits, then I'm going to get them out of my locker room because they're not a good influence.
No. There's a difference with LT and Stephon Diggs. LT always got along with his teammates.
That's true.
He wasn't a problem in the locker room. Stephon Diggs was a bit of a prima donna. LT was never that on defense. He got along fine with the other players, and the Giants had a great leadership group. I can make this argument that Harry Carson was more of a actual leader than LT. I mean, LT was a leader because of his greatness, but he wasn't one of those guys who would counsel other players. But LT wasn't a distraction in the locker room. It was strictly off the field stuff would go on. But when he showed up to the stadium, he was all in. He was all in all the time.
Yeah, and I want to be clear. When I'm talking about character issues, I'm talking about guys who act out violently against fans like DK did. And
DK was one stupid incident. We don't know how DK's been in the locker room.
He's had other issues. He had issues in Seattle. This isn't a first time.
But he's with Pittsburgh now. We don't know what's going on with Pittsburgh. He might be great in the locker room. He did one dumb thing going over to the fan and what transpired. And you want to know something? This reminds me of the Plexico Burris thing. That cost the Giants their season. They were something like 10-1, 11-1 when Plexico Burris had that incident, shot himself in the foot, literally and figuratively. But I found the gun. I don't know what happened with Plexico. I forgot the exact story.
If
they lose to the Ravens, that may have cost Pittsburgh their season because they're going to miss the playoffs. And had DK been there for the Cleveland Brown game last Sunday, we don't know for sure, but there's a reasonable chance Pittsburgh wins that game and they clinch the division.
Well, when Diggs is playing, he's a great player. And listen, I want to finish my comment about character. When I'm talking about character, I'm not talking about guys who have substance abuse issues that can be, and they want to help themselves. I'm forgiving people second chances. If you lay your hands on a woman, if you're Stefon Diggs or Barrymore, and you put your hands on a woman, you don't get a second chance with me ever. Now they have to be proven.
Well, let's say that they did what anyone could get accused also. Let's wait and see.
I agree.
Let the investigation come out, unfold. Then if it's conclusive, the league will step in.
Right.
The team won't have to if something like that went down.
Right. And the reason I bring that up is, again, character isn't necessarily you got a problem with alcohol or drugs or whatever. You those can be overcome. When you hit women, they can't be. And LT's issues, at least early in his career, that I can remember, he didn't have domestic abuse issues until later on, early in his career when James is talking about. I don't think he had those issues. I think he was a partier. That's all he was. And as you said. So anyway, just zero policy. You can't have a lot of tolerance for these guys. I
was reading a book on the Giants written by Gary Myers. I forgot the exact name. I read it last year. One of the Giant players, and I'm kicking myself for forgetting his name, the night before the NFC Championship game, he was in Far Rockaway, New York, getting high and everything the night before. And he left the next morning to go to the stadium to game. He got there while the team was warming up. He first showed up. And reportedly, Bill Parcells just glared at him, but left him alone because it was the big game. And the other players, including LT, reprimanded him. What the heck are you doing with everything on the line? You're partying, getting high, and this and that. And some of these guys. Listen, we glorified Joe Willie Namath for the night before, showing up in the morning with a couple of women hanging on his arms.
That's different.
Out all night the night before the Raider game. That's insane. But we glorify it as, that Joe Willie. How intriguing, how wonderful.
Those aren't the character issues I'm talking about. And even DK, I can even distinguish. Again, I'll take it. I understand he hasn't been convicted of anything. Let's just say, I'll use A.J. Brown. Antonio Brown. As a example, there's a difference between what DK has done and what Brown did, because when you lay your hand on a woman, it's different than when you punch a fan in the stands. I'm going to give DK a little more latitude than I am somebody who puts his hand on a woman. Always. I've seen it up close, and I've lost friends and family, and I'm never going to give somebody a pass for putting his hands on a woman.
Well, but in some cases, like Ray Rice, there got to be the point where you move on. You forgive him because it happened to his wife, and when they hurt Ray Rice,
it was on video.
I mean, not hurt him when he was suspended. Keep in mind, it also hurt his wife, who's with him to this day. Okay. Ray Rice should have gotten more than a 2-game suspension, but he absolutely should have been allowed back in the league. Someone should have picked him up. He did pay a heavier price than he should have. It shouldn't have been a career ender.
Don't lay your hands on a woman. Pretty simple.
Well, no. But the point is,
zero tolerance.
But you wound up hurting Ray Rice's family. You hurt his wife. The woman who was victimized really wanted to move on, and she's with him to this day. That's what I'm trying to say. We can't be so. Absolutely, it's a terrible thing he did. He acknowledges it. Everyone does, but it gets to a point where you have to move forward in a certain sense.
I'm sorry.
You're going to condemn him. You're going to condemn Ray Rice the rest of his life. Not give him a job in the NFL. In other words, he's not going to get a job, but you're going to allow these other guys who've been committing these certain acts allowed back in.
Depends on what acts you're talking about. If you're talking about killing 2 people like Ray Lewis, no, should have been out of football.
Right, you were. Okay, I mean, it's a debatable topic, all this. I mean, situations vary, that they're different.
Just don't let the air out of football. That's all, because you're getting a lot of trouble for that. We know that. We didn't even touch on the NFL, Jack. Let's take just a couple of minutes, because we got 3 big games Well, there's other games with repercussions, I guess, as far as seeding. But you got Panthers and your Bucks, who got some great momentum going into this game. The Bucks do.
No momentum. The Bucks are in bad trouble now after I sang their virtues. They are going to win tomorrow, the Bucks, but it might not mean anything now.
Win.
The Panthers might get in the. I predicted the Panthers would go 8-9 in the season. They are going to go 8-9 because they'll lose to the Bucks, and they might be division winners at 8-9 because the Falcons upended the Rams. Falcons play the Saints. Chris Olave is out for the Saints. Can the Saints beat the Falcons in Atlanta?
Yes.
I know that Saints have won a few in a row. Yeah, the Falcons are so dysfunctional, they could actually lose this game to the Saints.
They could. Again, the Saints have been playing pretty good football for the last month, and Shuck has played pretty well at quarterback.
But if I'm the Panthers, just go out and beat the Buccaneers, and you don't have to scoreboard watch. I mean, the Bucks have to scoreboard watch no matter what. That's discouraging. They have to win tomorrow, the Bucks, and then hope for help from New Orleans on Saturday. And the Saints aren't exactly the strongest team, but they've been great the last few games.
If the Panthers don't go into Tampa and win this game, and they back in with an Atlanta win, I don't want to hear nothing from Panther fans, Sonia.
But I can be put down because of how high I was on the Bucks. If the Bucks get eliminated, but I can't hear about anything. Don't tell me anything nice about the Panthers if they lose this game, because I would have predicted the Panthers season perfectly at 8-9. So don't tell me anything about the Panthers if they lose.
How about
that's tough? Without Chris Olave, it's tough. Yeah, he has a blood clot or something on his leg. And
yeah, that's a tough.
Man. Yeah. Chris Olave, an underrated receiver.
Yeah, I like Chris Olave a lot.
Yeah.
Steelers and Ravens, another play-in. Well, this one is a legitimate.
Steelers are cooked, I think.
I think the Ravens.
I know it's in Pittsburgh. The one thing they have going from it's at Pittsburgh. Man, you want to see Aaron Rodgers, if it's his last game, at least play a good game. I think letting the Ravens out of the box, man, that could be a big story before the NFL season's over, because Lamar Jackson is showing up. He squashed all stories about, wanting to be a Raven. He's all in. And I think Lamar Jackson is all in. And I've never stopped believing in Lamar Jackson. And I think the Ravens could win this game. They might win it big even.
No, he should have played last week, and maybe we wouldn't have this kind of. Oh, they won last week. Sorry. Lamar plays game over. I agree. 49ers Seahawks for the best record in the NFC. Toss up. I don't know who's going to win this game. I mean, I got to give a slight lean towards the Niners. But, yeah. He doesn't have a lot of weapons, Brock Purdy, when you look around. He doesn't seem to have a lot of weapons. But he's playing some of his best football he's played here the last month. He's played great.
Which should be a lesson to people. When he was out, we heard, Purdy's not that good. Should Mac Jones be starting from now on? Credit to Mac Jones. He said at the time, now Purdy's the starter. He's the backup. I'm curious what's going to become of Mac Jones. Is he going to get a Sam Darnold type of opportunity elsewhere? Darnold was the backup to Purdy and went to the Vikings. It might be worth a fly on Mac Jones somewhere. Maybe even the Jets, maybe they sign him, a Malik Willis and kind of roll with one of them as a bridge quarterback for now. And if they play well, then they become the starter going forward.
Brian's right about Seattle being a great road team.
They are.
Last week,
it's a toss-up.
One loss.
It's going to be a close. I can't imagine either team dominating. It looks like a one-score game, either way.
The last thing I'll touch on, too, with the NFL, and then we'll wrap it up, is if I'm Buffalo or, let's see, who am I talking about here today? I'm talking about the Eagles, the Bears, Buffalo, and San Diego. Does positioning mean enough to go out and try to win these games this weekend? Like the Rams, too. Rams can avoid – they could go play the winner of the Panthers-Bucks matchup if they were to win this week, and I think that if they win, I think only if they win.
Well, I'm going to tell you, sometimes just be careful what you wish for. The Rams actually lost at Carolina, a meaningful game this year, so you never know. And I don't think the Bucks or the Panthers would be an easy out for the Rams. Not the way the Rams have been playing. They haven't been playing well, the Rams. I mean, they came back in the second half against Atlanta, but even then they couldn't come all the way back.
Yeah.
I mean, if I'm Buffalo, I see my window closing. If they don't get it done this year, are they going to be better next year? Possibly, but that window's been open for a while and it's been closing this year. If I'm Buffalo, maybe I take a step back. I heal this weekend. You already have a playoff berth clinched, and you take your chances wherever you play. You're going to be on the road the first game anyway. And see whatever the matchup is, it is. But get help. Be sure you're as healthy as could be. Josh Allen looked like he was playing hurt. I would consider possibly even benching resting. I mean, Josh Allen for this game.
They said they're going to start him. So, and it's interesting. So the Eagles are resting everybody. The Chargers are starting Trey Lance. So we know they don't care about winning.
Chargers, you kind of wonder Trey Lance if he has a big game with the Chargers. Is he going to create any interest elsewhere? Because once you're a very high draft pick in this league, it's like having a gold card. It keeps you in the league a few extra years.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, Zach Wilson would be out of football if he wasn't the second overall pick. But because he was the second overall pick in the draft, he'll always be able to catch on somewhere.
God bless him. Any boxing news you want to touch on before I wrap up today, Jack?
No real boxing news. Nothing coming up, right now. I look forward to the end of the month fight. Teofimo Lopez, Shakur Stevenson, January 31st at Madison Square Garden. That's the next really, big fight on the horizon. And, we heard with Anthony Joshua, the accident he was in with two of his camp aides were killed in Nigeria was a, terrible story.
Yeah.
Monday night, we're having boxing historian Lee Groves on as a guest on Gloved Fist. He's the guy who keeps count of CompuBox, number punches landed per round that we see and so on.
Bad story. And good catch, Jack, Monday. We'll talk about that more then on the Gloved Fist with the previously mentioned Frank Laterzo, and we'll leave it there. Jack's got the debate show tomorrow with Jay Train and Brian, and I'll see you Sunday morning with the Sunday Stream of Conscience. Have a great weekend, guys. Thanks, Jack, for a great show. Have fun this weekend, guys. Take a breath and more football tomorrow. Bye.